In this video, I'm going to break down the exact 4-step process that you can follow if you're interested in transitioning from a traditional marketing team into the world of product growth. For context, my name is Andrew. I'm a former 2-time head of growth that now coaches and mentors other growth leaders. And years ago, I made this exact transition in my own career. After spending the first 7 years of my career working on marketing teams, I identified as your typical technical marketer. Acquisition, demand generation, marketing ops, data stuff. That was my background. Nowadays, you might call me a growth marketer. At the time, I was your technical nerdy marketer, and I was able to break out of that role into the world of product growth. And since then, I've helped several of my coaching clients and my friends do the exact same thing. I'm going to break down my process for you in this video. And before we jump in, I just want to acknowledge that, of course, there are many different ways that you could approach this, but I'm going to share the way that I did it and hopefully give you some suggestions that might help you do the same. My journey from marketing into growth really kicks off during my time at Wistia. Wistia is a video platform for marketers, and I was hired on the marketing team as an acquisition marketer. Essentially, success in my role looked like growing the number of people who signed up for Wistia's free plan every single month. And for context, it was a really fun business to work in acquisition on. The company had 0 people working in sales, tens of thousands of paying customers, hundreds of thousands of active free accounts, and over 1 million website visitors on a monthly basis. Nobody was working in sales. It was 100% product-led at that point. And I was really excited to kind of come in and put my stamp on the e-commerce side of this business. E-commerce for SaaS is kind of how I talked about the go-to-market model. And so we saw massive opportunities on the website to try to optimize our existing traffic instead of paying for more traffic via ads or partnerships or affiliates or anything like that. So for a 9-month period, we went deep into conversion rate optimization. We ran dozens of tests, and eventually it worked. We increased the sign-up rate by about 20% month over month in a statistically significant way. As someone leading this initiative, my chin was up, my chest was out. I was swagging a little bit. I thought, man, I'm having a massive impact here. The challenge was that even though acquisition increased by about 20% month over month, our sales didn't. And so pretty quickly, I felt deflated. And I realized, man, maybe we've optimized the wrong area of the growth model. We got all these new people to sign up for the Wistia free plan, but none of them were doing anything with it. We started to kind of peek at the data, and we saw that a whole bunch of them dropped off during the onboarding process and never really got to engage in the tool in a meaningful way. And so we thought, what if we took this same process of experimentation, of testing, of validating quickly before we implement broadly, and we applied it to a different service area? Instead of the website to drive more signups, what if we applied that to the new user experience to drive more engagement? So that's where the itch for me to get out of marketing and to start working in the product began. And so for me, the spark had been lit. I knew that I wanted to see if I could run the exact same process that I had seen work on the website to solve conversion challenges of testing, iteration, experimentation, and apply it to a different surface area. I knew that I wanted to do that, but I didn't actually know how to go about getting that done, right? I was a marketer. I didn't work on the product team. So I approached the head of product and asked, hey, who owns this area of the tool, of the user experience? I'd love to collaborate with them. I see massive opportunities. And they said, well, nobody did. And I said, well, great. Can I start working on that? I'd love to see if I could impact the business, and I think that this could have a huge impact. And they said, no. It wasn't even that polite. They basically told me to fuck off because I was a marketer and I didn't work on the product team. And why in the world would a marketer not working on the product team all of a sudden be working in the product, right? That was not something that was going to fly at our company and really at any company. It was pretty clear I wasn't going to have that opportunity. And so what they told me is, why don't you share your ideas and we'll add them to our backlog. Now, for anyone who's worked in SaaS for a while, anytime somebody says, share your ideas and we'll put it in our backlog, they're basically telling you politely that they are not going to do the thing that you're asking them to do anytime soon. I didn't know that because I was young and naive, but I started filling the backlog with these potential ideas. Things that I saw, ideas that I had, tests that we might want to run to try, things that we had seen work on the website that maybe would work inside of the product, right? We're still solving conversion challenges for the exact same people. I had all this confidence that the things I had seen work could work in this area as well. And so they sat in the backlog and they sat there and they sat there and they sat there. And so I was frustrated. So I had this decision. I could either accept my new reality, which is I was a marketer putting ideas into the product backlog, or I could do something different. I had a little bit of a light bulb moment. Somewhere along the line, I heard somebody share this quote that stuck out in my mind. It was something like, the person who understands the problem in the most amount of detail tends to get trusted to implement the right solution. Somewhere along the line, somebody smart said this to me, and I realized the exact same thing applied here. So I had a lot of ideas, but I actually didn't understand the problem in the greatest amount of detail, right? I knew that there was a problem. People were signing up, but they weren't converting, but I didn't really know the onboarding and activation problem in enough detail yet. So I got voracious. I started watching people sign up and go through the tool almost daily. I started watching user sessions. I started pinging people who had signed up but not activated, not engaged in a meaningful way, asking them why, trying to run surveys. I started digging into the data and setting up dashboards of the milestones that people needed to complete in the onboarding process and where they fell off. And I started looking at different segments of users to see if I could find any patterns or commonalities. I couldn't get enough. I loved it. And I was doing this on the side of kind of my typical acquisition job. And the moment that changed everything is at some point in time, my manager said, "Hey, Andrew, you're digging into the spreadsheets, but at this company, we're influenced here by storytelling. Tell us the story of the problem that you see and the opportunities that you observe." And so I did that. The meeting that changed everything was a meeting where I looked at people, companies who had signed up for Wistia and had gone through the onboarding process and bailed. Companies that we would have loved, that met our ICP, that we would have high-fived if we had the logos on our website. I found about 10 or 12 of them. I set up a full story saved list with those 10 or 12. And then I called a meeting with the executives to say, "Hey, I know I've been talking a lot about this product growth opportunity on the onboarding side. I've been sharing the data. Y'all know the data, but I wanted to show you real people who have signed up. Look, this is Kim that works at company A. Look at her onboarding experience." And we'd show this person, I'm using Kim fictitiously, but we'd show this person signing up for the tool, encountering bugs, rage clicking on unclickable elements, people that are encountering these weird user experience dead ends and things like that. And I had about 10 or 12 of those in a row. And as the meeting goes on, I'm watching the executives in the room get uncomfortable. You could see their body language. It went from sitting up straight and maybe leaning back in their chair and relaxing to people shifting around uncomfortable, arms crossed, feet tapping. You could see it on their faces. And that meeting changed everything for me, because what happened after that is the executive realized the huge opportunity that we were missing in not having somebody that was laser focused on it. And because I understood it more than anybody else did, and I was able to communicate that opportunity in a way that my executives could hear, all of a sudden, the resource logjam became unblocked. So this is the beginning of phase 2 of my transition. Phase 1, just as a reminder, was me sharing ideas in a backlog that were basically collecting dust. But after this meeting, the product team was under pressure to commit to a certain amount of opportunities that I had flagged for them. So I was still a marketer, adding these potential product growth opportunities into a backlog, but now those opportunities were getting prioritized and executed, or at least a certain number of them were. So the product team would go off. They'd say, "Hey, thanks, marketer Andrew. We appreciate the idea that you saw. We see the card in our backlog. We'll take it from here." So there was a commitment to execute. And then what would happen is after they would execute on it, they would still come back to me because I was the person that understood the problem in the most amount of detail. And I had all of the charts. I knew all the segments. I knew all of the cohorts. And I knew all the milestones. I had the dashboards already set up. They were under commitment to come back to me and ask, "Hey, did we solve the problem? Are we starting to see the needle move in the right way? Are we engaging more of these new accounts that we all have agreed should be engaging in a more meaningful way?" Sometimes the answer would be yes. Hey, we're starting to see the numbers move. And a lot of times the answer would be, not enough. Maybe we see the numbers move a little bit, but they're not moving in a big, meaningful way. So this began the beginning of stage 3. Stage 3 was all about me flagging opportunities and then not being told to sit on the side while the product team took it from here, but actually being consulted with on their approach, on the design, on the way that they were going about brainstorming and problem solving. So I would still flag the opportunities. They would go inside of a backlog Trello board at that time. But then when the opportunities were prioritized, they would come to me and say, "Hey, let's sit down and talk about potential solutions to this problem together." So I was getting consulted on the approach. Then they would go off and execute on their own. And then again, coming back to me to say, "Hey, did we do it? Hey, Andrew, we brainstormed this, felt like the right way to go about solving this problem. We all were in alignment there. Did it actually have the impact we hoped it would?" And again, we were starting to get some wins. We had plenty of misses, but we were starting to generate some momentum and, more importantly, a little bit of muscle memory on how to execute cross-functionally, and a little bit of buzz, a little bit of juice. Because as we were doing this, I was getting in front of the company and sharing, hey, here's some of the opportunities that we see. Here's the tests that we're running. Here's the way that we're moving the needle. Here's what we're learning. Here's what we're doing next based on that learning. So I was kind of operating a little bit like an evangelist for the product team. Again, I'm still a marketer, but I'm evangelizing what they're doing in a way that shows business impact and generated excitement and momentum. And that led to stage 4. The fourth stage of this process, or the phase of this process, was having dedicated resources myself. So no longer did I have to put ideas into a backlog and then wait for the product team sprint cycle to come around my way and for them to take a few of those cards and move them onto their actively in progress board. Instead, I started getting a few engineers that reported to me, or at least I could determine their workload. It wasn't like they reported to me functionally. I couldn't give an engineer career guidance and coaching feedback, but I could determine what their workload was. So I started operating more like a growth PM because I already had the muscle memory, right? I already knew how to execute. I was already being involved in the planning and approach, and very involved in the after things were launched in analyzing the results. This was simply changing how quickly I could operate. And because I had been getting in front of the company and sharing the excitement and the buzz and the learnings, I built up a lot of trust and a lot of goodwill. And this is where my life really changed into the second chapter of my career, where I transitioned off of the marketing team and I started leading this cross-functional growth team, basically e-commerce for SaaS. And again, at a company with no one working in sales at that time. And this was kind of the beginning of my growth journey in a more formal capacity. So just to recap, the 4 phases of this transition for me. Phase 1 was seeing ideas and putting them in a backlog for them to collect dust. Phase 2, seeing opportunities, putting them in the backlog, getting commitment to execute from the product team, and then giving feedback and helping them analyze the results. Phase 3 was me flagging opportunities, being consulted with on the approach, not involved with the execution, and then again, helping with the analysis later. And then phase 4 was having dedicated resources that reported to me, who I got to control what they worked on, what they didn't work on, and how quickly they worked on it. So there's 3 things that I want you to take away from this story. If you're thinking about making a transition like this, 3 things that will make this go faster and smoother. The first is a reminder. These things take time. The 4 phases that I just talked through took about 9 months from beginning to end. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. And just because it's a no today doesn't mean it's a dead end. It's all about soft pitching. So you want to bring it up one time, and then if you get a no, it doesn't mean it's no forever. It's just no today. The second thing to keep in mind, learn how decisions are made at your company. I shared this. At mine, they were made by storytelling. At others, they might be made by data. At others, they might be made by seniority. You need to learn how important decisions are made at your company and then adjust your style accordingly to help your ideas get out of your head and into action. And the third thing to keep in mind is the person who is closest to the problem tends to get trusted to implement the best solution. If you do those things, you will be doing everything in your control to transition out of marketing into working on product growth. Of course, there are no guarantees, but again, this has worked for me and several of my coaching clients. There's no reason why this couldn't work for you. If you're in the middle of this transition, I have 2 other videos that may be helpful for you. The first is the qualities to look for in a high impact growth leader. Obviously, these are qualities if you work in growth and you want to become a growth leader, you want to be exemplifying in your day-to-day, and it might be a video that you want to pass on to your founder, or if you're a founder, those are things that I'd be looking for to see if your potential growth leader has some of these soft skills needed to thrive in these types of cross-functional roles. And the second video that may be helpful is how to structure your first 90 days. So when you work in a cross-functional capability like a growth team, you need to operate totally differently than other more traditional teams. Typically, there's no existing framework in place. That video will help you with that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Of course, if you need any one-to-one coaching or support, I'm here for you. Otherwise, good luck.